So hey gang, I'm super psyched to be here and chat a little bit. I just absolutely adore this event. I love the people, not just the founders of the Feast and Carl and Lori and Brett and everybody in the volunteer team, but the actual humans I get to meet every time I come here. And I want to say one thing when I talk about building a high-performing team. I really don't care for the word high-performing, but I like to say that I want to build an environment where I can have a high-performing team without high anxiety. And that anxiety comes from this idea of technology, and we've heard this in a few talks already with Colin kicking us off, and then Rachel brought us through that and saved us from our dystopian future. And we've talked about like technology's moving so quickly that we can't keep up with it, right? Like we have to plan the next small rectangular computer we're going to get, which is also a phone, which the gang from Saved by the Bell is immensely jealous of. Zach Morris is pissed that his phone that's calling in the aircraft support isn't this. It's changing. They're releasing new ones every time we feel like we just got comfortable with one we have. And I say that because as that becomes the norm, the expectations of the people who we're building digital products for will now start to rise. They're not going to accept something that's slow, doesn't work well, is hard to use, because they're so used to just having things that work quite easily for them. The problem with this is, as companies try to keep up, we fall into the trap of doing the thing. We throw money at it until we feel like we've got enough of a solution, right? And that's good, and I kind of grayed out American here because I wanted to keep the quote, because I don't want to mess up what they said, but it's just companies in general anywhere, right? And it can even be smaller organizations within larger companies. When we come to this idea, we throw this money at it, we do all these things, we use words like digital transformation, and we do a lot of stuff around how we're going to change things. And what ends up happening is that no matter how much effort we put into it, some things just go wrong. They don't work correctly. Projects don't necessarily go the way they should. Products don't launch in the way they should. We launch products that are insensitive to other people. They're not inclusive, right? And part of that reason is we start good by saying, okay, we're using the leading technology right now, and we're getting super talented people in here to do the work. We're like, cool, but that's not enough. We can't stop there because that's what everyone is doing now. The market for the work we do is growing. And I know that Rachel said we may work ourselves out of our jobs or into different jobs once Skynet becomes aware and takes over. And that's okay. But at this current moment, we're jamming. Like there's so much to be done. So we can't, it's not enough just to say we have a lot of money, some good tech, and a great team. And actually, a great team isn't great because you hired what you thought is the best talent, right? We need a new differentiator in the work we do and the products we build and the projects we manage, right? Talent's not enough, tech's not enough. But if we build the teams that are going to make these products in a culture where they feel enabled and empowered to do their best work, we could even use shitty, outdated tech and not have a ton of budget and just have some like somewhat okay people, and I bet you we're going to see better results. Tech becomes irrelevant so quickly. When the right culture is fostered, we keep people. These are the things we should be looking at the onset of our projects. How are we staffing? And not, when I say staffing, it's not how many resources, and I hate that we call people resources because that's really shitty, but like, what are we building for the people we're going to bring in to enable them to do their best work, right? When the right culture is fostered, the team has less to worry about in the areas of politics, in the areas of just frustrating work environments, of toxic work environments, and they can focus their attention on the work that they really want to do in a way that they know they have the ability to do it. And even if they don't have all the abilities at the onset, they feel they're in a culture where they can learn those abilities. So how can we do this? How do we go about creating a foundation for our teams to do their best work? The first thing I think when I want to talk to myself and to everyone in this room who's a leader by title or by nature, is that we allow our teams to take informed and calculated risks. They can make honest mistakes and learn from them. right? This is going to encourage creativity and innovation, not just in a design sense, but in just a how we work sense. That we're going to be able to work in new and creative ways because we feel comfortable trying those things and taking risks. New York Times published an article about, it was a write-up on Google and how they were changing the organization. But one of the quotes in there that I think really stood out to me was the idea that the data is indicating that psychological safety, more than anything else, is critical to making a team work. And at first I thought, like, what job do you go to where you're like that, feel psychologically like unsafe? And I was like, oh no, that's like all of our jobs. Because the reality is some of us work some pretty amazing company. I love the company I work for, right? And they strive so hard to create this environment, and it's incredible. And I've worked at other companies where that wasn't the case, right? And that keeps me very grounded in the environment I want to create for my teams. Because then, when I think about what that psychological safety means, when people are poorly led, micromanaged, not challenged, or not really held to any standards, they're gonna underperform. We've set an environment for them. We've said, the best thing you're gonna do is suck a little bit, right? Whether there's a manager or a leader that's not present and just kind of lets them do whatever, or one that's so micromanaging that they want to know every little thing they're doing every time and they give them no liberty or freedom or room to work. These are going to guarantee that, one, retention and keeping teams thriving is not going to happen, and that your product is going to end up pretty shit. Because products that are successful are the outcome of people who feel enabled to do their best work. And if we can't create that environment, then we're limiting our ability to be successful as a company. 4 things I think are crucial to this is, one, as a leader, establishing group emotional intelligence, empathy, self-awareness. When I shared the slides for this earlier in Slack, in the back end of the slides, I threw a table in there of like 5 or so things that are representative of what an emotional intelligent leader is, right? Because once you establish group emotional intelligence, then you can build trust, identity, and efficacy. I hate that word so much. Fuck that word. Sorry, that wasn't very emotionally intelligent of me, was it? Basically, because trust and identity is there, we're really efficient. I didn't want the 2 bars to be the same length. Sorry, it's my weird designerness. And once we have those 3, totally ditched saying the word again, we can have better participation, cooperation, and collaboration. Do you see what we're building towards here, right? Then we get better decisions, more creative solution, and higher productivity. And what that means to me is that being an emotionally intelligent leader is really fucking good for business. And when we start to think about how we want to structure our teams, and whatever say we have in that process as we kick off projects or build new teams, we can go to the business and say, actually, if we build this way, it's good for business. If we invest in the experience of the employee equally, in almost as much or more than we do the customer, then we're going to see great success, because not only will we take that same approach in servicing the customer, but our employees will feel that empowerment to support the customer, the end user, the individual, the human that we're building for, because we build for humans. When we do that, and if you look really closely in here, those cards, there's like a pink Cadillac in there somewhere. Not really, I didn't do that, so kind of forgot, sorry. I was singing karaoke and shit. Create a shared vision that supports team member autonomy in decision-making and execution. This is the hardest thing for leaders to do, right? How do we be hands-off enough so that our team feels empowered, but hands-on enough to be able to make sure that the shit gets done the way it needs to, and that the powers that be up the ladder know that things are okay? A shared vision that everyone can work from allows people to be able to make decisions. There's an excellent book about this called Team of Teams by Stanley McChrystal and the McChrystal Group. And he was in Afghanistan leading special forces, and they were just getting their ass handed to them over and over again as they fought, because they were just following this certain way of working for everything, and it didn't work. There was so much politics and so much micromanagement that they just couldn't do what they needed to do to be successful. And they started working when breaking up into smaller teams that worked under a shared vision and say, you make the decision and the call you need to make in the moment at the time. And before you do, measure it against this vision. And we trust you that you're going to act in service of that vision. And they saw change. They saw people stepping up. They saw success. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. Easily one of the better books I've read in the last 5 years. As a leader, your team needs to understand your expectations for them, how important those expectations are, and that you understand that meeting expectations and striving for a goal comes with a bumpy road sometimes. And that while I'm not one that am not into the fail fast thing. To me, failure has always been an end state. That's when I've given up. And now, you know what? This shit just don't work. I'm not going to do this anymore. That's failure. And even then, if you learn from that and move forward, is it really still failure, right? But I am one who says, yeah, we're going to make some mistakes. Some things will go sideways sometimes. We're going to have to adjust as we move forward. So let your team know that they have room for that, and that as they work through that, you're going to be there to support, to coach, to mentor them in whatever that is. Invite them to come to you with those concerns. I invite my team, if I say, hey, I think this is what we should be doing, I invite them to say, like, dude, yeah, but don't forget about this. That could really be a concern down the road. I invite that challenge. I invite that critical lens into the work we do, because it's important that we work that way as a team in an environment where we can communicate with one another, regardless of our role or our structure, in the best effort of the shared vision we have. And if we can give them clear objectives and then set some guardrails for how to get there, it's like bowling, right? You ever go bowling with smaller humans? The small humans, aka children, they can barely lift the damn ball as it is. And you know that this is going to be frustrating because all they're going to do is throw a gutter ball the whole time. And some kids don't care, and that's fine. Then there's other kids who are going to lose their shit because they just cannot not only throw a gutter ball. So you give them that little ramp thing that they can roll the ball down, and then you set up the gutter rail so no one necessarily throws a gutter ball. Which, now, I'm not saying that all team members and employees are children. I'll leave that for you to make that decision because you know your teams better than I do. But what I will say is, if we think about that idea of the guide rails and gutter balls and those types of things, if we know areas of concern, we can set up guardrails and guide rails for our teams so that they know, like, all right, I'm getting to a point where this is actually, I just feel like this, so I should mention it to somebody. But they know that those are there, so they continue to focus on their work in the meantime. Your team leads, right? They're the ones who carry forth that vision, that purpose that everyone's united under, right? Then they can make decisions on their own. Because we're not ever all, nothing works in the way that we think it does, right? It's just not reality. We learn things in a meeting and have to make a decision based on deadlines, finances, and everything else. Sometimes you have to make a call right then. And someone else might be in a meeting or somewhere else. My team maybe cannot get to me because I'm here right now, or I'm on vacation, or I'm cooking, or doing whatever, right? Because that's all I do when I'm not working. But the reality is I trust them. We have that vision. Make the call. It's okay. You know the vision. You know our shared purpose, our intent. We've stated our intent for this project. Go ahead. Make the call. Let me know afterwards. We'll discuss it. If we need to, we'll adjust. We'll be adaptable, right? I think this is one of the most powerful things I've read for me as an individual, because I am a very high anxiety person by nature. I'm very high strung. So when I think of my team and they're working and what they're doing, I'm kind of like, all right, okay, good. Hey, how's it going? I'm like, damn it, back off, back off, And so teach my team how to think about the work and how to treat each other. That way I don't have to tell them what to do. And I don't tell them what to do. This is how we want to think about and approach our work. Now go do your best. Do your best work. And giving them that freedom is empowering. It's powerful. If you've ever been given the autonomy needed to do your work with the way you think, you feel like you could go in there and knock that shit out of the park, and you feel great, and you feel confident, and you feel psychologically safe. And as a result, that transfers to the people around you, and they experience the same. And with that shared vision, it becomes easier to increase team communication and collaboration, right? The rule I have for my team, for us, another great book, it's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And in there, there's a concept of teams. Everyone has multiple teams. And you have your first team and your second team. And that is where you have to build your relationships and establish them and be able to work. And that allows you to engage and manage your time and do things. And so for our team, our first team, we want to work from a position of trust and to build trust with each other. Because when projects get hectic, politics go, environments get toxic, all those things, it's easy for us to become self-defensive in our work, even within our own teams that we're supposed to be aligned with, even with our other designers or PMs or developers or whatever it is, right? So we need to build trust with ourselves first. And we do this by assuming positive intent. If I don't understand why someone did something, I should ask, hey, what was going on with that decision, or what happened there? Give me more context. Instead of coming in and saying, like, what the hell were you thinking? You probably did that because you wanted to see your work highlighted, and we work up these narratives in our mind about how and why people do things. But it's also important to engage others in a way that it makes it easy for them to assume positive intent on our side. So if we build that trust, that collaboration, that shared vision, we help them assume positive intent in the work we do. We ask a lot more questions and make a lot less assumptions when we assume positive intent. Because we only have to assume, oh, they were probably trying to do this, or they may have been doing the right thing, as opposed to working these narratives up of all the things we think they were doing wrong. And then once we have established strong internal relationships, we can start working with our partners better, because it starts with us and our teams. Then we can extend it to others. So when we look at that same thing again, now we want to work from a position of trust and seek to build trust with our partners. The same thing. Work to create an environment where you show that you assume positive intent in them and that they can do the same with you. And we do this by leveling the playing field. We are a team. We are one team. One of my favorite things to do for multiple reasons is to tell people I work at a bank. Because one, they do not assume positive intent out of the gate and they think I'm lying. Because I generally don't look like the average banker, which is fair. I mean, that's a fair assumption. I can understand that. But when we come in and we take the opportunity of being one team, so I tell people I work at a bank. And they say, okay, what? I say, oh, I work in a commercial bank. And they're like, okay, no, you got to give us something, buddy. And I say, well, I work building products for businesses in a bank. I don't tell them I'm a designer. An event like this I might, because there's multiple different skill sets and that's an environment where we're talking about that. But we are one team. Our product, our practice managers, or what DPMs, our developers, we are one team, right? So we level the playing field, that we all have an even and equal stake in this game. And we find a common purpose and rally around that. We unite under that singular mission or vision. At Capital One, there's a very high level vision coming from the top that is that we want to change banking for good. Because I know I have never necessarily been the type who's like, oh my gosh, a financial institution, I should trust them with everything. And I think Rachel talked about that, of the Wall Street bros that fucked it all up back a few years ago, right? We have this incredible mission that we want to change that. We want to empower people to better understand and make use of their finances in the work we do. That's the outcome we strive for. So we can use that vision as an accountability. And I'll share with you the vision that we have in the commercial bank in just a bit. And then be willing to step outside the norm to support success. Then one of the things I always talk with my designers about, or if anyone asks me, what's the number one tool a designer should have? I tell them they should be a kick-ass project manager. Because what's going to happen a lot of times is that you're going to get paired on a project, and either someone's not going to be doing that role and leading it, or there's not enough resources, or you're on a very small project where it's like a designer, a product manager, maybe a couple devs, and you're spinning up ideas, and someone has to lead the conversation, someone has to lead the project and take it from end to end. So having that ability allows us to take on an extra set of responsibility that adds value to our teams. So regardless of your role, be willing to step outside of what you normally do to be able to support the team. It's one team. This is a really long quote. I'm not going to read it. But the idea here is that if we're not mindful of how we interact with others, we are going to make it really hard for them to be in their optimal state for work. And I love the theme that I've been seeing kind of come through the talks at this event about being intentional about what we're building, who we're building for, being adaptive. It starts with how we interact with each other. That's when our projects begin, because that's when we're laying the groundwork for what we're going to do in the end. Whether we're building our own future, like we just heard, or we're building a future way out for others, whatever we're doing, we want to work in a position that helps others do their best, right? That being said, I'm sure like, but you don't know this motherfucker I work with over here, and he's such an a-hole. I'm like, oh my gosh. Sorry, I just had like a big slew of swears. Apologies. Fuck it. No, but we're going to deal with this, right? This is inevitable. We're going to deal with difficult people. We're going to have project structures and team structures that maybe aren't optimal, or we're not going to have all the right people on a team. There's going to be things that just happen. There's going to be politics that happen. Like I said, when things start to get hectic or people aren't communicating as they should, silos start to build. When silos start to build, we become inner. We become inward in our protection of ourselves. This leads to politics. We do everything in service of ourselves to protect our role, our job security, our effectiveness, which is really a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when we work that way, we don't accomplish any of those things. So at Capital One in the commercial bank, this is our mission that we rally around. We are to inspire each other to achieve our dreams and do the best work of our lives in a fearless, candid, and supportive environment. That's really hard, right? Like, 'cause I don't know what everybody's dreams are. And in fact, personally, I really don't care, right? Like, have your dreams, live them, do them. Go for it, right? But when it comes to the working relationship, I know that they have goals, and I learn about them as a human and who they are, then I can work in a way that when they go home, not just their dreams at work, when they go home, they're a better human, right? Because when work does get toxic and when things do get hard, guess what? We, without even trying, we take that shit home. And whether you have a family or just a few pets or a couple succulents or whatever it is, like you take that shit home and you're not happy. And even if I don't help someone achieve their dreams, it's so lofty. It reminds me of that animated gif of like the sloth, like follow your dreams, right? Like I may not be doing that, right? But if I'm helping them feel more comfortable in their work every day and they're coming back to work energized and empowered, then yeah, that's something I'm going to work towards. To do that, though, we need structure. And so here's what we actually do. And this is something we're implementing throughout our teams. Leaders have to act in a certain way, right? They have to create psychologically safe environments. They value diversity of opinion and audience, encourage and reward thoughtful risk-taking, celebrate wins and failures, and establish a team over me mindset so that the team members can be open and vulnerable, provide meaningful, timely, caring feedback, share candidly, challenge directly, care deeply about each other's success, and lift each other up, and take risks to help advance the team's goals. This is how we want to work. This is what building a high-performing team is. Because when you work like this, you're unstoppable. Yeah, you'll hit bumps. Things will go sideways. It'll get frustrating, but if you can true back to this mission, that leaders work in a certain way so that team members can act and work in their best environments and do their best work, That's building high-performing teams without high anxiety. One of the things we do to help that, and are doing, because I know it's easier said than done, right? And like I said, it's going to be hard sometimes, right? I have found so many times when I'm ready to say, like, F these clowns, or as I lovingly say with my friends, these jackwagons, right? It's just like the ultimate insult because it's two random words, and if you say it with enough like vigor, people are like, wow, that person's really upset, right? But it's not that offensive either, because jacks and wagons are probably okay. But when you're ready and you've had enough, that's so much of the time, that's right when you're on the brink of a breakthrough, and things will start to turn around and get better. And I encourage you to hold on to those things. It's so hard to judge when is enough, right? There's easy times when shit's just really toxic and bad and we know that, yeah, this is enough. But when projects are consistently frustrating and we're not seeing the results that we want, it becomes really difficult to keep that positive mindset. And remember, you could be just around the corner from a breakthrough that's going to change the way a team works, and you're going to ship something incredible, even if it's just a new way to work with your team. So we've started taking that mission statement that I showed, and the leaders will do so that team members can, and we've started to actually put that into our performance management. So mid-year reviews, year-end reviews, goals. We're not just judging anymore like, hey, did you ship all the work you were supposed to? Did you foster an environment that enabled people to do their best work is now something we're being measured on. Right? That's how you affect change. And I still am floored that I work at a bank and a financial institution where this is the mission of the leadership. This is what they want to do. This is how they want to be. We make resources heavily available, right? We give training materials. We send people to trainings. Our super lame internet has like everything in there, and resources and readings and articles. And I put a lot of the stuff that's influenced us on a resources slide in this deck. So when I, you got those slides in Slack, you can look up those books and some of those things and see if there's a way that you can look at how that would work with your teams, right? And when people need to be in development plans, because that's a reality too, people will underperform. It's life. Sometimes we suck. It's okay. If we take this mindset in coaching them along and mentoring them, we get to be a part of seeing that person turn the corner in their success. And there's nothing more gratifying than that. Nothing I have ever shipped in my far too long time of working is as gratifying as seeing someone turn the corner and really step into just being their badass self and doing great work. Because that's like a human, right? Like you just impacted a human being for the best. That's the kind of environments we want to create. This quote is from the follow-up book to Team of Teams. I think it's called One Mission. Chris Fussell has this great, I just love this. And I love this analogy, this idea that we're not the arbiter, right? As leaders, we should be gardeners. I don't know if you've ever tried to garden. That's why I mentioned succulents, because that's like the only shit I can keep alive. Like I'll buy herbs, I'm so excited to have like basil and mint, and I'm gonna cook all this stuff. By like the day I go to actually cook, it's all dead. I'm like, well, I guess we'll crumb it up into a powder. Does that work? I don't know, right? So I'm like kind of screwed there. But, so I wanted to stand there and be like, grow, like do your thing, like that. But it doesn't work like that. A gardener has to cultivate the environment around the things they want to grow. And that environment is tailored to the context of those things they want to grow. Learn about your people. Learn what makes them tick. Learn what will help them do their best work. I've talked a lot about leaders. Not every person in this room is probably a leader. That's okay. You can work in an environment where maybe you're not a leader, so your voice isn't broadcast as loud. But if you can look to work this way with your teams and build allies and advocates for this type of work, then you can start to lead the change in the projects you're on slowly over time. Slow incremental change is so impactful. People will see, they'll want to understand why, and you can share with them what that vision is. I am a designer, but when I think about this work, I think about this topic, I don't think there's anyone more better suited to be this arbiter of change in the places they work than a DPM. You have so much influence. You work across multiple teams. And you're actually people expect you to be the glue. You're the connective tissue. You can use that as a platform to influence the environments that you want to build for your teams to work in. When you're going to start a new project, you can say, okay, great, we'll get to all we're going to do this way, and this will be these check-ins, and this cadence, and it gets all that jazz later. Say, how do we want to work as a team? Establish rules of engagement. Establish an open forum where candid conversations can happen. And when I talk about candid conversations, I definitely want to make clear that just because you've read the book Radical Candor and you can say some harsh words does not mean that you're being radically candid. You're just being radically stupid, right? Because no one wants to be talked to like that. Radical candor says, I'm going to put myself out on a limb here and say the thing that's kind of tough, that I'm worried, I'm concerned about this. And it's done from a state of wanting to see things change for the positive. And the DPMs in this room, you have the power to do that in your organizations. And if the theme has not been very apparent as we've heard these talks and this type of content has been coming through from yesterday into today and as we carry out through the rest of today and wrap, I'm sure you will hear more. And I would encourage you to go back to your teams with this information. Don't run in I'm going to change the fucking world, and just guns blazing, right? That's so tempting to do. But if you go back with your notes and your talks and the slides and you do a little research about what is the culture here really like? Where are our struggles? Then you can look at the things you've been learning here in the context of your organization, and you can really be twice as effective in change. Because I'm a firm believer that you can't just take any process or any idea or any new thing that we hear about and just set it on top of something and expect it to fix it. Understanding always precedes action. And if you want to take that action to build high-performing teams without high anxiety, look at the context and the people you work with. Look at their quirks. Look at their strengths. Build around those things. Build those allies and advocates. And start to see that change. Thank you so much for your time. I would be remiss if I did not say that Capital One is hiring, and they're probably trying to hire every single person in the entire world, as far as I'm concerned. But I threw in different types of roles here. I shared this deck, so you don't have to look at this anymore. But thank you so much. We're pretty close to time, so.